This war wasn't just fought in trenches, with guns, or with traps. It wasn't only carried out with bayonets and barbed wire obstacles. World War I was also a massive financial war, fought in gold and silver reserves, in bond markets, inside central banks, and behind closed doors by economists who never set foot on the front line, innocent soldiers paid with their bodies and blood. But governments and their officials were busy with balance sheets. What happened in these years didn't only decide victory or defeat. The world's financial system was reshaped then, and we still feel the effects today. If you think war is only about armies and diplomacy, you're wrong. One of the lessons of World War I is that money can also be a weapon, perhaps the most powerful one we've ever known. In 1914, Europe was a powder keg waiting to ignite. Rivalries, colonial ambition, and military alliances had turned the continent into a chessboard. Yet beneath all the talk of honor and empire, there was a harsh truth. A war on this scale was impossible to wage without staggering sums of money. And here's the bitter reality: when national leaders chose war, they also chose to borrow. Sending troops to the front meant piling new economic burdens onto their people. At first, many governments believed the war would be short, maybe over by Christmas. They thought they could pay the bills with gold, limited borrowing, and patriotic donations from ordinary citizens. But within months, they realized it wasn't even close. War was eating money faster than anyone had imagined. At that time, gold still mattered in Europe. Paper money could be exchanged for gold, which gave currencies credibility but also tied governments' hands. Gold was finite. You couldn't simply print it. By late 1914, Germany was spending some 10 million marks a day. Britain's war bill was already around 2.5 million pounds a day. Everyone knew the gold would run out, so governments threw the rule book away. The major powers abandoned the gold standard one by one, effectively admitting that money would now rest on faith in the state. That was one of the most important moments in financial history. The war turned into a financial game. Isolated from global finance and blockaded at sea, Germany's only option was domestic borrowing. Berlin launched huge war bond drives, pushing citizens to invest their savings into war loans. Propaganda never let up. Heroic soldier, images, appeals for families to sacrifice comforts. Germany raised something like 100 billion marks this way. But when defeat came, those bonds became worthless and millions lost their savings. Britain had an edge. London was the heart of global finance, and the pound was trusted worldwide. After some short-term borrowing at home, Britain tapped into deeper global credit, crucially looking to the United States. Wall Street became the financial lifeline for the Allies for years. This wasn't charity, it was power. After the war, the United States emerged as the world's biggest creditor. France, already strained, fell into heavy debt too and depended increasingly on American capital. Russia's financial story was a disaster. Massive borrowing, runaway inflation, a currency collapsing. And by 1917, the economy was in ruins and the Tsarist system collapsed. The fall of the old regime wasn't just military or political failure, it was a financial breakdown. The scale of the mistakes was staggering. By war's end, the Allies had spent well over $140 billion. The Central Powers roughly $60 billion, sums the world had never seen. The result wasn't just debt, but the breakdown of the old financial order. The gold standard was shattered. Inflation ripped through economies. Germany soon faced hyperinflation so extreme, people needed wheelbarrows of banknotes just to buy bread. Ordinary people, workers, savers, small investors, paid the price, while elites often sheltered wealth abroad or in real assets. This is the crucial point. World War I taught governments they could finance the unimaginable by detaching money from reality. They suspended gold, printed money, issued bonds, borrowed across borders, and then tried to fix the wreckage later. Sound familiar? That playbook never really went away. When governments or central banks tell you this is temporary, remember that in 1914 they were saying the same thing. And millions believed them until the currency in their hands was worthless. When guns fell silent in 1918, the battlefield had shifted to balance sheets. The United States, once a debtor, now held huge gold reserves and the world's largest creditor position. Europe, the old financial center, was drowning in debt. Britain owed the U.S. about $4 billion. France over $3 billion, and smaller nations were saddled with obligations they could never realistically repay. Wall Street replaced London as the planet's financial capital. But the transition wasn't smooth. Debt-financed wars create a second war, the struggle to make others pay. Britain and France tried to extract reparations from Germany. The Treaty of Versailles demanded an astronomical 132 billion gold marks, a punitive, unrealistic sum. Germany couldn't pay. Every attempt to do so, whether by printing money or transferring goods, destabilized its economy, culminating in the catastrophic hyperinflation of 1923. The bitterness that produced helped fuel extremism later. Britain tried to restore prestige by returning the pound to its pre-war gold parity in 1925, a disastrous policy that caused deflation, unemployment, and unrest. Meanwhile, U.S. banks lent money back into Europe so Germany could pay reparations to Britain and France, who could then pay back debts to America. A circular flow institutionalized by the Dawes and Young plans. On the surface it looked stable. Underneath, it was fragile. When the Great Depression hit, the whole structure collapsed. That's why World War I matters beyond military history. It was an economic turning point. It showed how financial errors and illusions could reshape the future. Propaganda could turn debt into patriotism. Ordinary savers could be convinced to hand over their wealth into bonds that might never be repaid. And the real winners were often those in the boardrooms, not those in the trenches. Money and power became tightly fused, and we live with the consequences. Think about today. When central banks say inflation is temporary, when government raise debt ceilings year after year, when new money appears with the press of a button. Remember 1914. The abandonment of the gold standard wasn't an accident, but a conscious choice in desperation. Borrowing against the future, printing to cover the present, selling bonds with patriotic slogans. These tactics have been used for more than a century. Every modern financial crisis, from stagflation in the 1970s to the 2008 crash, carries echoes of those war years. The same illusions persist in the same people. Ordinary savers, middle-class workers, small investors are asked to sacrifice. The hidden financial battle behind World War I isn't a relic, it's the foundation of today. The lesson is harsh. When money is untethered from reality, it becomes a tool of manipulation. Governments will always find ways to finance wars, bailouts, and crises. And you will often be the one who pays through taxes, inflation, or the erosion of your savings. Real wealth isn't just numbers on a screen or politicians' promises. Real wealth is resilience, knowledge, and the ability to see through illusions. One last thought. History doesn't repeat exactly, but it rhymes. The financial playbook written in 1914 has been used again and again in different clothes. The result is often the same. Those in power protect themselves, and the uninformed are sacrificed. If you take one thing from this story, let it be this. Don't assume money is real just because it's printed, and don't assume the system is stable just because authorities say so. The truth is in the balance sheets, and history never lies. If this perspective opened your eyes, don't forget to like and subscribe. History hides answers, and our aim is to find them.